This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Is this on? Who knows what's going on over here? I think we're on. I hope we have audio. Okay, first and foremost, we have to say it's Leili Nishma, somebody over here. So while I find out who it is for, I was just joking. I just said while I find out until I found it out. Now I found it out. Okay, so this class, the food is dedicated for Natan Tolik ben Yedidya. Is Neshama Shahab and Aliyah. Okay, so it has to be some sort of introduction going on today. First of all, yes, this is not water. Well, technically, it has some H2O in there. Okay, so what I can tell you about trying to arrange this class is that this class should not have happened like 10 times. It should not have happened. It was like question if it was going to happen, it was not going to happen. First of all, it's so close to Sukkot. And it's right after Yom Kippur, where people don't really feel like I did enough spirituality for like at least a week. So we're doing class right after Yom Kippur. People are still recuperating. People still have to get ready for Sukkot. So we were going back and forth. Should we do a class? Should we not do a class? Besides the fact that I have about 1,000 things on my plate that had to be done today, which is why I called it for earlier and why we're starting just about on time for our usual week. But so at the end of the day, my wife had to be out, I had to be out, so we needed a babysitter. So we went and we called every single babysitter we knew. No one, what? Oh, wait, nobody was available. So I said, what am I supposed to do? So I don't know if I could name people over here, so I'm not going to. One of the girls that arranges that does part of the arrangement. I said, listen, we don't have a babysitter. She's like, I'll find you a babysitter. About a few minutes later, she's like, I got you a babysitter. Happens to be it's one of the girls from the chat. Happens to be she's right now babysitting. So it's a big shout out and a big thank you and a big scoot for that girl who's actually babysitting now, my messy house. And besides the fact that the reason why I'm late, I have to tell you this, is I told you guys 7:30 sharp. 7:30 sharp for me obviously means 7:31 or whatever. But I only came back from the doctor with all my 3 kids at 7:30. So, and it was just, after all that, I'm just thinking, the Satan does not want this class to happen. I come into class finally, I put up the camera, and guess what's missing again? This is my fault. I can't blame this on the Satan. This is my fault. There's no memory card in here. So then again, I had to go run to the house, pick up the memory card, and come back. It's like almost the Satan does not want this shiur to happen. So there's one of two things. Either the shiur is going to be so amazing because it happens to be the only way that it's going to be amazing. Every class needs siyata dishma. It needs help from God. This class, all the more so. Besides the fact that I had Yom Kippur, so as I was preparing this, I was pulling things. So things are still floating in my head. I usually like to have everything on paper. Usually I like to have everything memorized. This class is going to be a little bit different than that. What can I tell you? But, so there's 2 ways that it could go. Either it could go so amazing because it's all in God's hands. Sometimes you think you do 0.1%. Really, you don't even do 0.1. Sometimes you feel you do a 0.1. This one, there's nothing. I'm telling God, everything is in your hands. So, let's pray and hope that this class is going to be, if this class is not good, then it's all my fault. If it's amazing, it's all on God. Okay. So, with that introduction, this is the last class before Sukkot, and we're going to have the next class probably the first Thursday after Sukkot, so everybody's welcome, at 1601 Quentin Road at 8 p.m. on Thursdays for women only. Why is this so hard for me? Okay. You know what's funny? Usually, I start sweating and I start, my heart starts pounding when I'm learning Torah. Here it's before I even started. So it's like a guy who's working out and he takes the steroids before he works out. Like imagine what type of workout that's going to be. So, it's probably going to get a little bit rowdy over here. How can I tell you? Just from my end, at least. Okay. I feel like I need one of those fans. I think it's going to make a difference at this point. It's not going to make it. I'm going to still be schwitzing away. Okay. But you know what it is, when you clean for Pesach, I don't know if we're going to get to the class, but when you clean for Pesach, when you do a mitzvah and you sweat for the mitzvah, those sweat is worth so much. So when you're going, and that's why when you're learning, let's say, and it's uncomfortable, you get all that more reward, the learning that you do. When you're modest, so let's say, you live in Mother Russia, Siberia, wherever, and it's freezing over there. So everybody there is dressing modestly because they have no other options. Some people, they go beyond, they're Hasidim and the way that it was the other way. They do whatever possibly you can to do it. But when you're modest and it's easy, so of course you get reward because you're modest. But when you're modest and it's hard and you're sweating, all that sweat is worth so much more. So when you're cleaning for Pesach, and it's not Pesach, but you know the joke they say for It says for Sukkot, men have to build the Sukkah, and they do work. Obviously, the women are still doing the majority of the stuff. And for Pesach, the women do the majority of the stuff. But something very interesting. It says the women, when do they start cleaning for Pesach? They start on Erev Sukkot. When do the men start building for the Sukkot? Also Erev Sukkot. They both start the same day. The question is, one's doing it for, one has a 6-month head start, one doesn't. But when you're cleaning for Pesach and you're doing a mitzvah and you're sweating, it's worth all that more because the Fum Tzara God, the Pirkei Avot tells us, the Chazal tell us that the more difficult something is for you to do, the more strenuous that you put into it, the greater the reward that you're getting, for it. Okay, so now let's get to Sukkot. Sukkot, so the amazing holiday of Sukkot. People don't speak enough about Sukkot. You have people for Pesach already speaking, like a month before people are speaking about Pesach. But the problem is that for Sukkot, you got Yom Kippur and you have Rosh Hashanah. The high holidays are right before Sukkot. So Sukkot, you have 4 days for everybody to be like, okay, what are we going to learn about Sukkot? And you try to put everything in there, and it gets almost flown by the radar. So it is important that we're doing it. Hopefully we'll be able to inspire everybody here to change your lives forever. Why not? I don't know. I mean, all right, a few people. All right. Okay, so let's begin. So we're going to ask a few questions. I have to remind myself to slow down. When you're rushing, everything is fast. So we're going to go really slow now. I'm counting a few minutes. Okay, we're okay. Okay, fine. So now the Sukkot, the Zohar says regarding Sukkot. Sukkot is such an amazing holiday, such a beautiful holiday. The Zohar says that it's known as Tzila Dimehmenusa. We can lower it if you want. It's fine. It says Tzila Dimehmenusa. The Sukkah is the shade of Emunah. So question number 1. Let's go through a few questions. Question number 1. What does that mean? You're sitting in the Sukkah and you're in the shade of Emunah. So for some, in some areas, whether you're in Brooklyn or other places in the world, if you're living outside your house as an Orthodox Jew, then yes, you really have to, go by faith of God because, what goes on, people can, who knows, do what. So, you really have to be in faith because you're living outside. You have nothing else but to rely on God. I remember one time I was in, is it bad? It's a place that's not near Rockaway, but the opposite of near Rockaway. So in a place, the opposite of near Rockaway, let's just say we have, it was a very brotherly neighborhood. So I had relatives over there, so I was in a sukkah. In the back, but I'm telling you, I wanted to go sleep in the sukkah. Every sound, I ran in, I was getting knives under I don't know what, I was becoming Chuck Norris over there. I was getting the stuff over here. The sukkah was a zipper one, it was a cloth one, right? You sneeze too loud, the whole thing shakes. So, it's not like I'm protected. So all you have to do is rely, on God. Every time you hear, some crackling the leaf, it could be just a raccoon, which happened to be which is not as, you hear crackling, Shema Yisrael, you're sitting over there, you really become religious, in that foxhole. But in any case, you're sitting in the sukkah, you need the faith of God in there, per se, in a certain extent, because sometimes people are scared, and that's all they're left. They're left with the faith of Emunah. But that's not what the Zohar means. The Zohar is not saying, hey, you have to go and sit in the sukkah, because that's the only way you're going to survive is if you have faith. It's talking about something else. There is the Zara Kodesh, Rabbi Avraham goes says like this. It says something very interesting. He quotes it from a medrash that says that when Avraham Avinu went and he had those 3 angels come over to him, it says that he actually fed them in the sukkah. He fed them in the shade. What was the shade? The shade was a sukkah. And the Medrash goes and says that because of the reward that God is going to give, because Avraham went and fed the angels under the sukkah, the Jewish people will have a sukkah, they'll have the ananei kavod, and God will protect them. So there's a few things that we're going to get into it, what we see over here. And the Midrash goes further, that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven to receive the Torah, the angels were not like, Bruchim Abayim, why don't you come, here's the Torah. They were like, whoa, what's this mortal doing over here? Why are we giving him the Torah? What's going on over here? So God goes and he made Moshe Rabbeinu's face resemble that of Avraham Avinu. He resembled that of Avraham Avinu, and and God told the angel, says, "Aren't you ashamed?" He says, he fed you in his house. Now you're gonna, he's up over here. Treat him with respect. And the pasuk over there says, over there in Genesis chapter 18, verse 4, that the schut, because of the merit, it's hinted over here, because of the merit of what Avraham did for the angels, it says over here, what did he do? It says, "Yikach na me'at mayim." He told the angels, take some water, v'rachzu gleichem v'hishanu tachas ha'etz. Go and wash your feet. We know why you wash your feet, because afraid they were sand worshippers or worshiping the dust of their feet. And he says, go recline under the tree. But look at something very interesting. You take the first words of the last four letters. Raglachem is resh, v'hishanu is vav, tachat is taf, and ha'etz is a hey that spells out Torah. That spells out Torah. What we see over here is the merit that Avraham Avinu went and he gave those angels to eat under the tree, under the Sukkah. That's why the Jewish people got the Torah. So we see over here two big things that were happening over here. Number one, do I hear myself? Do you hear that? Does anybody else hear myself? Does anybody hear myself? Whatever. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Okay, I don't know what's going on. I hope that the audio is fine. But let's move on. We did what we had to do. Okay, the question that we have, so we have over here two things. Number one, the merit of Avraham Avinu. What do we say till now? Let's try to put things in perspective and put things very clear. Number one, because of Avraham Avinu gave to the angels to eat under the Sukkah, we got two things. Number one, we got the protection of the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds of glory. When the Jewish people went into the Midbar, this protected them from everything. That's number one. Number two, we also got the merit. We received the Torah because of that. We received the Torah because of the merit of Avraham Avinu. Now let's try to understand this. What is the connection between the Sukkah, between the Torah? We have a lot of questions that we have to deal with. First of all, even a greater question is the Shvili Pinchas brings this down. He says he asks a question like this. Says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu went, let me picture this scenario. Well, come with me on this, imagination journey. Moses goes up to heaven. And God makes his face, he gets a face transplant, instantly, and he looks like Avraham Avinu. And the angels come and be like, hey, what's he doing? And God says, I'm giving you the Torah. Give me the Torah to mere mortals. They weren't so happy with that. Then God says, he looks like Moshe Rabbeinu. He looks like Avraham Avinu. He put you under the tree. He gave you to eat. And I'm okay, fine. And that worked fine. Think of it like this. Somebody goes and your father has a precious, priceless diamond. And you come home and you see your father wrapping the diamond. He says, what's going on, Dad? What are you doing with this diamond? He says, there's a guest downstairs. I'm going to go give it to him. And you can think, it's a guest? He runs downstairs, see who that is. He's some, guy. He runs up. He's like, Dad, who is this guy? He says, why are you giving him our precious, our priceless diamond? So the father says, don't you remember 4 years ago you went to visit him and he put you with shade and he gave you something to drink? And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, I guess give him the precious diamond. And everyone's like, okay, God is he's about to give us the priceless Torah. And the Chachamim the angels are going and they're trying to go and say, no, don't do it. And the way that God silenced them is like, hey, he put you under the shade, Gave you something to eat, something to drink. It's not the Italian mafia, you just have to agree with whatever it says. Listen, didn't I, do you a favor one time ago? And be like, what, are you going to argue with me? And be like, no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Johnny, what could I do for you, you're not going to go, it wasn't like that, it really sounds them. So how can it be, do you guys understand the question? Seeing a bunch of blank faces. You don't understand the question. Okay, good, you tell me. Okay, so, I'm hearing myself. Nobody else is hearing me?
Is it recording?
It's, who knows? I don't know. Oh, whatever, we're going to go on with that. Okay, let's try to clarify this question. It's a very important, very easy, very simple, very straightforward question if I think so myself. Okay, so now. Yeah, it's echo. Okay, at least I have an audience. Okay, might be myself, but whatever. For some people it's an audience. So I think when I speak over a higher pitch, if I go lower. Okay, everybody in the online world has no clue what's going on right now. They're like, what can I tell you? Come next time to class. All right. So follow me. God was going to give the Torah to Moses. God was going to give the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu. But the angels didn't want him to give the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu. So God made Moses look like Abraham. And because of that, Abraham did a favor for them. He did a favor. So, he did a favor. Now, you did a favor. Now that's why he's going to get the Torah. So the question that I'm asking, the Shvili Pinchas brings this down and asks, how is that a good enough favor? He didn't save somebody's life. It wasn't like he saved the entire world. He gave them, put them under a tree, put them under some shade, gave them something to drink. The payment doesn't seem to equal the troubles that he went through. Okay, good so far? Okay. It says in Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 2. It says the Jewish people went after God in the desert without complete trust. You realize that it wasn't something that they didn't have anything. God says, we'll go into the desert. Fine, we're going to the desert. It wasn't like, and it's very difficult. You have with kids, if you're by yourself, you can be macho by yourself. Yeah, no problem, I'll go. But you have your kids, you have your wife, you have all these things, you have your husband, you have all these things that you have to deal with, you have to go in with. The Jews did not ask any questions. God says to go into, after the exodus of Egypt, God says go into the midbar, go into the desert. They said fine. Even furthermore, we know it says this in the Exodus, in Shemot, chapter 12, verse 39. It says by the Matzot, they didn't have enough time for the bread to rise. They didn't have enough time for the bread to rise, and they had to go right away. This shows the amount of Emunah, the amount of faith that the Jewish people had in God. And even if we take this one step further, when you go, when the Jewish people cross when they went into the sea, and there was a splitting of the sea. I know we're in the wrong holiday, but bear with me for a little bit. Well, the truth is, it's all one. When they went about to cross the street, so Moses started praying. What did God tell Moshe Rabbeinu in Exodus chapter 14, verse 15? It says, "Vayomer Hashem el Moshe," and God says to Moshe, "Ma titzak alai? Why are you screaming at me? Daber lebnei Yisrael v'Yisrael. Let them just go into the water." Like what a Jew does, a Jew prays. Like this was Moshe Rabbeinu supposed to do. He says, we're stuck, we pray. And what did God say? No. Why are you praying right now? Just go. And one of the reasons that we had the merit to go and have the water split was because we just went. We didn't ask any questions. God said, go into the water, we go into the water. It's a level of faith that we had. This is why we begin to understand that the paradigm for all salvations, we say, is kikriyat yamsuf, like the splitting of the sea. We say in Psachim, page 118a, it says, kashin mizunosav shel adam kikriyat yamsuf. A person's livelihood is as difficult as the splitting of the sea. We also know in Sotah, page 2a, that it also says that a person's zivug is also, his soulmate is also as hard as the splitting of the sea. What does that mean as hard as the splitting of the sea? Because for the most difficult things in life, you have to have a level of faith. Just like the Jews just went inside to the water, they just had the faith to just go inside for the most difficult, for everything, but especially for the most difficult things in life. You know what the salvation is? The salvation is Emunah. The salvation is just faith. You just got to go. You got to do what you got to do. The rest is in God's hands. That's why we use the two most difficult parts, the finding a zivug and the parnasah. We just leave it. It's all in God's hands. How? We just got to do. We just got to go. So now, all right. Let's try to explain this idea of this idea of Emunah. This is a story that I read in a book by Rabbi Binyamin Pruzansky that he brought down in the name of Rabbi Duvi ben Shushan. And Rabbi Duvi ben Shushan tells us about himself that when he was in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, the people in his yeshiva, they used to say, there's a certain Sephardi boy that, and it was, I think it was called Derech Chevron, where you go over there every day after class or something like that. This boy runs down the stairs and he looks and he points towards Kever Rachel and he looks. And you know why he looks? He looks to see where Mashiach. He says Mashiach, his rabbi told him the Mashiach is going to come from that direction. So every day after class, he runs down to see if he could see Mashiach. So this all of a sudden became like a legend. Like really, there's a little kid that's coming out there and is looking out there. So it was like, people said it's true, people said it's not true. It was like a myth that was going on with him. So when Rabbi Ben Shushan was going and he was traveling down that road, even if you know that it's probably not true, you're still going to look. When the building, they said there's a big steps in the old rickety building. There's a witch sitting over there collecting money. You know how stories goes. So he said there's a little, there's a staircase with steep. There the boy comes down. So every time that he drives past by, he happens to look. And he's driving past by. One time he's driving past by over there and he sees a little boy skipping down the stairs. A little bit like 8 years old. He's like, no. It's like, it can't be. He pushes the stop button on the bus. The bus stops. He runs off. And he sees a little boy going down there. And now Rabbi Ben Shushan is going over there. He's not going to start, looking at the boy and start. He makes believe he's waiting for the bus over there. But he sees the boy standing there, and he's looking, and he's looking, and he's looking. So he goes in Hebrew, he says, Tagid li yeled. He says, kid, what you looking for? So the kid, a smart Israeli kid, he hears the accent. He says, you American? He says, Tam Elikai? He's like, yeah, I'm American. He says, lo chashuv, doesn't matter. American's not going to understand me. Smart Israeli kid. But the rabbi, is 21 years old at the time. He says, no, come on, please, tell me. He says, no. He said, please, I beg of you, please tell me, what are you waiting for? What are you looking for? So, I guess the kid saw that he wasn't going to be made fun of. The guy was really sincere. So he says, my rabbi told me. He says that Mashiach is going to go from Kever Rachel because it's going to greet Kever Rachel. And it says, God answered the prayers of your children. to greet him. Says, that's where kavachal, I'm coming to see if Mashiach came. And, so Rabbi Ben Shushan says, when Mashiach comes, says, you will greet him. And you'll be one of the front of the lines. He says, but let me ask you, says Rabbi Ben Shushan, goes to ask this kid. He says, what are you going to ask, Mashiach when he comes? And the kid says, I'm going to ask Mashiach, says, what took you so long? I've been waiting for so long for you. But this is a kid with pure, simple, unadulterated faith. He doesn't, we're like, yeah, God, please have Mashiach, but we're already planning a 3-year vacation from now where we're going to go to Honolulu and all the details of it. We're not like, for sure Mashiach is coming. Somebody asking, when's Mashiach coming? Tomorrow is when Mashiach is coming, right? But meanwhile, you're already, working on your vacation, you're working on all your other plans for 14 years in advance. So there's a different idea of a faith when it's just pure and unadulterated. But this is the faith that the Jewish people had. Pure, unadulterated faith. Says Rav Shimshon Pincus. He goes and he brings down Gemara in Makot, page 23b. It says that, when Moses received the 613 commandments, we know that there are 365 negative commandments, and there is 248 positive commandments, 365, this is, the solar calendar, 248 corresponding to the limbs of a man. Now, there's a very interesting Gemara. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara in Makot says that King David went and he focused on 11 mitzvot. If you want to go into all the details, you look at the Gemara over there. We're not going to go into all those. He said they gave 11 mitzvot to focus on. And then came Yeshayahu, and he brought it down 6 mitzvot you have to focus on. And then Micha came and says, no, only 3. These generations after generations are coming down. He says, only 3 you have to focus on. And finally came Chavkuk, and he says, only 1. What was the mitzvah that he says in Chavkuk, page, chapter 2, verse 4? It says, the tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh. A righteous person lives by faith. That was his only mitzvah. So now, first of all, the question that is asked, what do you mean that, he only gave us 1 mitzvah to work on? We try to do all the mitzvot. We try to do all 613. Obviously, many are not applicable nowadays because we don't have the bet, we don't have the Bet Mikdash. We're not male and female at the same time, even though some people think they are. We're not a Kohen Levi and Yisrael. Also, some people probably also think that. It says we cannot do all the 613, but still we try to do it. So what does it mean that Rav Kook went and tried to bring it down only to 1 mitzvah? The question that we're going to ask even furthermore is like, okay, fine, you want to bring it down to 1 mitzvah. What was the 1 mitzvah that he brought it down to? Emunah, faith. Out of all the mitzvot that he could have picked on, why did he pick, if you're boiling down everything, all the mitzvot, he says, listen, we're only doing 1, why is it Emunah? Why is it faith? Let him say Shabbat, let him say kosher, let him say something else. Why did he bring it down to faith and faith only? So Rav Shimshon Pincus said that he heard this from Rabbi Yosef Liss, that the Brisker Rav was one of the things that troubled him more than anything else was the desecrations of the graves in Israel. When the Arab, or even whoever it was, went and they desecrated the Jewish graves, it hurt him deeply, so much so that he ended up crying in pain at night, in his sleep from this pain and agony that he had. One time, they heard that the graves were being dug up again, and they realized, someone came and told the son, and says, the digging of the grave says, we have to tell my father, but he says, I can't do that. I can't do that to him. He says, and he asked the messenger, who was a rabbi, he says, please, can you go and can you mention this to him? So I said, fine. And they were so nervous, they thought the rabbi was going to pass out because every time he gets so in agony on it. And they went to the rabbi, the Brisker Rav, and they went to him and he says, listen, sorry to tell you this, but the graves situation is again being, torn up in, for the Jewish cemetery. So what the rabbi did shocked them. He said, he says, what can I do? I've done all that I can. And they were like, well, that's it. You usually get so, riled up over this. So he went and he started quoting a medrash in Eicha Rabbah. He said he brings down 4 kings, David, Asya, Yehoshaphat, and Chizkiyahu. He says like this. It says David goes over and they each prayed to God and God answered them. Listen to what they prayed and how they prayed and how, God answered them. King David goes and he says regarding his enemies, and I'm going to quote, he says, this is in Psalm in Tehillim chapter 18, it says, I will pursue my enemies and I will overtake them. God says, I will fulfill it. That was his prayer. God said that I'm going to fulfill it. Asa came and he says, I don't have the strength to kill them. Rather, I'm going to pursue them and then you will kill them. And God says, I'll fulfill it. Check, no problem. You got it. Then Yehoshaphat came and says, I don't have the power either to kill them or to pursue them. Rather, I'm going to sing your praise and you do the rest. You pursue them, kill them, you take care of it. God says, I will fulfill it. Chizkiyahu came and he says, I don't have the strength not to kill, not to pursue, and not to sing praise. Rather, I'm going to go to sleep in my bed and you do it. And God says, I'll do it. That is the Midrash. Now the Brisker Rav asks and says, I don't understand. Was Chizkiyahu smarter? Chizkiyahu was like, hey, listen, everybody, let's see how far we could take this. What was Chizkiyahu doing? Like, everybody went, King David, who came the first, he says, I'm going to go and I'm going to fight them, and I'm going to be able to kill them and pursue them. And God says, yeah. And if you realize, as the generations go down, they ask for less and less. And all of a sudden, Chizkiyahu asked for almost nothing. He says, listen, I'm going to go to sleep, you take care of it. And that's what happened. The Sanchev, the whole army got decimated in the night. The angel came, there was a plague, and, destroyed them all. So,
They do less and less.
what?
They'll do less and less.
They'll do less and less, right. So the rabbi answered a very important understanding over here. It says that each person is obligated to do everything that is his power or her power to do, and no more. You're obligated to do whatever you have the strength to do it. Each king asked God for whatever they were able to do. More than that, they couldn't do it. They wanted to, they couldn't. They were only able to do, and they're only held liable to do whatever they are able to do. More than that, they're not held liable. That's why each king asked. You knew what they were able to accomplish. He says, I could do until here. God says, I know that's all you can do. You do that, I'll take care of the rest. And that's all that God asks. This is a very, very important concept. Now, this, when the Torah was given originally, the Jewish people were on a very, very high level. All 613 commandments they were able to do. But as the generation dwindled, as the generation went down spiritually, there was only so much that they could do. They couldn't. And as it goes down and down, we fall more and more further from the path, unfortunately. Doesn't mean that we're allowed to, but this is just that we don't practice at the type of a level of devotion and the way that we had the righteous people in the previous generation. By the time it came to Chavkuk, by the time it came to him, the whole Torah, what was each leader was doing at that time? Like King David says, we have 11. Every leader says we can only focus on 11 mitzvot. Then they says no, 11 is too much. We can only focus on 6. And then Micha again, no, we can only focus on 3. Until Chavkuk says no, we can only focus on 1. We can only focus on 1. More than that, we can't do. What is the one that we can focus on? V'tzadik be'emunato yechyeh. A righteous person lives through faith, lives through his emunah. The understanding of this, says Shimshon Pincus, goes and says that really we don't even have the power to do anything. Everything comes from God. Everything comes from God. But in order for us to be able to get the siyata dishmaya means the help from God, we need to be a receptacle to something. The way that we build this receptacle is through faith. Once you have faith, then you have the help from God, then that will only help you. You have to understand this, that when King David came and says, hey, only do 11 mitzvot, doesn't mean you only have to do 11 mitzvot. You mean focus on the 11 mitzvot. From that, God will give you the help, the power to do everything else. And as the things went down, it says, no, we can't focus on 11, we can only focus on 6, 3, and then finally 1. 1 is the Emunah. Emunah, and this is where we are nowadays. The only thing that we can focus on is Emunah. Once we have the faith, then we have the receptacle that we be able to get the help from God, and from that, God takes care of everything else. We need to do what we're able to do.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. But how do we know at what point Hashem wants us to stop and take over? Like, I can stop at any point, no problem. But I don't know how much Hashem wants me to do.
Excellent question.
I have to do something.
So this is a very, very...
I ask for money and then sit at home, but I also don't have to work 10 jobs.
So hold that question till the end. I'm not going to answer it fully till by the time we get to the end, but you'll have a little bit of understanding, but then we'll try to address that a little bit more. So now, let's speak about matzah a little bit. No, nobody even wants to think about matzah, but let's speak a little bit about matzah. Matzah is known as the bread of healing. This is what the Zohar brings down. Now, the Gemara in Eruvin brings down something very interesting. And the Brisker brings down also. You realize any medicine that you take, something very interesting, any medicine that you take, it's beneficial to one part of your body, but detrimental to another part of your body. Like, let's say you take pain medication. So certain pain medication takes the pain away, but it's not good for your kidneys or for your liver. You take chemotherapy, God forbid, and no one here should ever need it, but if they take it, it's good for, kills the cancer cells, but also kills the good cells. You realize medication, it's good for one part of the body, and it's not good for the other part of the body. And the truth is, this is really with everything, even the food. That's why we have to relieve ourselves in the bathroom, because the body takes only the good stuff and releases the bad stuff. We have a filtration system that's going on over there. But the way that it works in medicine specifically is that when something's good for one part, it's not necessarily good for another part. That's in human medicine. But when we're dealing in spiritual medicine, you're talking about godly medicine, that's good for everything. Like, there's no bad part in it. So now the question that is asked is, if the matzah is known as the bread of healing, it's talking about bread of healing spiritually. If the matzah could heal you spiritually, then when you eat the matzah, you should be healed spiritually. Meaning, once you eat the matzah, you should be good. You should not have anger problems. You should not have any spiritual problems. You should be completely clean of everything. But then the question is asked, but I understand, people after Sukkot, they go, and they still have the same problems. Let's look at it. We just finished Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, people went over there, at least we hope everybody went and prayed and said, listen, I want to be a new person. I'm a new man. I'm a new woman. I'm starting today. I'm clean. Starting now. I'm all good. I'm all straight. I'm all doing everything directly what God wants. But yet, very quickly, we fall into our own old paths. Now, if Yom Kippur, and we know Yom Kippur has the power to go and erase all our sins, depending on the sins, but the majority of the sins you're able to erase it from Yom Kippur, then how come we fall so far, so quickly, so fast, right after Yom Kippur? It doesn't make sense. I thought Yom Kippur should help us, should heal us. Then we should be good. Why are we falling back again? Now, obviously, we're to blame on it, but shouldn't, and if you think about it, if somebody has a good Yom Kippur, the second that Yom Kippur is over, they feel like a different person. They were like, all right, I did this. I'm going to be the most righteous. Like, who needs a blessing? Like, who needs children? I'm like, bring it, they're the Baba Sali of the generation over there, they're, and granted, they should be, because we're a very high level right after Yom Kippur. But driving home from shul, all of a sudden someone cuts you off, everything's like, I can't believe, haven't eaten in 48 hours, even though it's 24, but some men count the double, whatever it is, So, it's, how can we fall so far so fast? It doesn't make any sense. If Yom Kippur has the power to heal, then where are we? Why are we not healed? So, Rav Shimshon Pincus goes and brings down a mashal, a parable. Imagine a guy, he has some sort of skin lesions. He has some skin problem. He goes to a skin specialist. The skin specialist says, you need some cream. Gives him some cream, tries the cream, nothing happens. The cream, he tries it for a week, 2 weeks. He comes back to the doctor. He says, listen, nothing's, the infection, whatever it is, it's still there. So say, listen, now it's out of my control. You got to go to a blood specialist. Let him run some tests. Maybe he could figure something out. So he runs to the specialist, runs a test. He says, you do have an infection, and he says, creams is not going to help you. What you need is, I'm going to give you some oral medication 3 times a day. Take this for 10 days, and you're going to be okay. So the guy says, fine. He goes home, takes the medication, pops in the first pill. Waits a half hour, looks in the mirror. Skin, lesions are still there. The problem's still there. Says, fine, I'll wait a little bit more. He waits 2-3 days, looks at the mirror, skin problem is still there. He's still got the same blisters, he's still got the same rash, he's still got everything. He says, you know what, the doctor says, I'm going to wait all 10 days. He goes all 10 days, finally after 10 days, he inspects himself in the mirror, he's like, nothing changed. I still got the same lesions. He goes back to the doctor, doc, I want a refund. What's going on over here? Insurance. He goes and he says, and the doctor says, let me run some tests. He pulls his blood, runs some tests, he says, listen, your infection is gone. He says, but look at my whole body, it's still full of lesions, still full of all my skin rashes. What's going on? The doctor says, you have to wait. He says, you're healed. He says, it takes time for the skin to actually go and show it that it's healed. But you have to know this. You are healed. And if you're going to go back to your old habits of eating, of sleeping, of the way that you've been doing it, then you're going to get the infection back. The infection is healed, but you have to believe that you're healed, and you have to act like you're healed. You'll see, within a few weeks, everything is going to go away. And so it was. Within a few weeks, slowly the lesions, started disappearing. The same thing happens after Yom Kippur. We're a day after Yom Kippur. You have to realize we are different people. We are different. We are completely different people than we were 2 days ago. But you have to believe in that. If you don't believe that you're different, then you're just going to keep on acting the same way that you've always been acting. And guess what? Nothing is going to change, because you are still thinking that you're that same person with the same disease. It says, listen, if this is not helping, I'm eating unhealthy. Bring in the fats. Let me eat all the sugar. Let me eat all the, the unhealthy stuff. And little did he know that he was healed, but now he brought the sickness back upon himself. Every holiday, we have spiritual powers inside them. Yom Kippur, we're healed. For example, Matzah, we also had the power of healing with that. After those holidays, you are healed. But if you don't believe and you don't act like you're healed, then guess what? You're going to fall into the same exact trap. You're not going to take care of yourself. You're going to fall back into the same exact thing where you same exact position you are before. When we're you also think about it, it's like, imagine someone sitting in prison, and he's locked up in chains, but it's pitch black. And there's a guy that whispers in his ear, says, hey, listen, I just snipped your chains, run. Just get out of here fast. But he doesn't believe, because he still feels the cuffs. He says, he still stays over there because he thinks he doesn't want to move it, and then he's going to get yanked. He just stays over there with the chains. This is us. Our chains are free. As of today, our chains are free. But if you don't go, and you just don't go run with it, within a very short period of time, you're going to be exactly where you were before Yom Kippur. The idea is we need emunah. We need to have faith. Not only faith in God, but faith in ourselves. That we're changed people. That we're able to change. Tzaddik be'emunato yechia. Tzaddik, a righteous person. You know how you get righteous? You have to have that faith. You have to have the emunah. There was once a guy, is a righteous man. He had a store in, I believe, in Syria, post-ISIS, pre-ISIS, and Aram Soba. And he went over there, and he was a very righteous man, and he had a shop. But he didn't work so hard. He woke up very, very early in the morning, and he went to the Bet HaKnesset, and he went and he prayed very early, very, very slowly, with a lot of kavanah, each and every single word. After his long prayer finally finished, he closes his book, and then he opens up the other books. He starts learning. He learns Gemara, he learns Halakha, he opens up and he learns for a few hours. Before he even begins the day, he's learning for a few hours. Then he goes, and finally he finishes after his few hours of learning, he goes home and he eats a light breakfast, and after he finishes his light breakfast, he goes and he says Birkat Hamazon with all the kavanot, very slowly, with a lot of things. By the time he gets to work, it's around midday. And people knew that he was a righteous man, and people wanted to go and do a lot of business with a righteous man. They know it's a righteous man. So his wife, though, wasn't so, fond of him, going to work only at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So she goes and says, wake up earlier, get to work a little earlier. If you go work more, you'll make more money. And he says to her, he says, that's not how it works. He says, because I spend so much time in the Bet Midrash, because I learn, because I pray, because I do everything what I do, that's why I have the panasah. By me working more is not going to give me more panasah. And his wife says, no, just the opposite. The more you work, the more money that you're going to get. And she was, pushing him for that way. He didn't change. He continued his path. One day, an Arab merchant comes over to him, and looks in shabby clothes. He looks. He comes into the store. He looks right and left. He goes into to this holy man, and he says, "Listen, I have something I want you to praise for me." So the merchant says, "Sure." He takes off his turban and he starts unwinding it, and he goes into a little pocket over there and he pulls out a beautiful diamond, a beautiful jewel. And the holy man looks at it. He's like, "Wow, it's unbelievable." He says, "How much is this worth?" He looks at it and he says, "This diamond, minimum 50,000 lira," which is a lot of money. So the Arab said, "Listen, I've been in this town for quite some time. I'm desperate. I need to sell it. Do you want it? I'll give it to you for the price." And he said, "Listen, if I had the money, I would take it." He says, "But it's too much. I don't have that. I don't have that cash over here." So the Arab says, "All right, thank you very much." And he starts winding it back up. But the Jew told him, the Rabbi, the holy man told him. He says, "Listen," he says, "I can ask around the other merchants." He says, "Maybe I'll be able to find you a buyer." He says, "Fine." He says, "He's staying at this and this hotel." So he said, "Fine," and they parted their ways. The next day, he wakes up. The same Jew wakes up early, does the same thing. Comes about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he starts making his way down to the shop. When he gets to the shop, he, a few blocks before, he happened to pass by the hotel that this Arab merchant was staying by. And he sees there's a small crowd that was gathering around this Arab merchant. And he starts gathering around, says, "What's going on over here?" He says, so one of the people, bystander, says, there was a merchant over here, there was an Arab merchant that stayed here for quite some time, racked up quite a bill, didn't pay, and last night he had a heart attack and he died. So the government allowed to, he had little possessions, they're auctioning off the possessions in order to pay the debt that he has for the hotel. So I says, wow, that's very interesting. And suddenly he sees the next item that's going to be auctioned is that turban. And the guy's like, is that the turban? Is that the same Arab? He's like, so the guy, he sees the turban, he's like, I got to take my chance. So he raises his hand for the first bid, 10 lira. So there's another Muslim looks out there and he says 15 lira. And he goes, the Jew bids back, 18 lira. And the Arab merchant says, what is this guy paying so much money for us? Rotten hat. He says, let the silly, smelly Jew have it. He's like, whatever. So he goes, going once, going twice, sold. He buys the hat for, now he didn't just like open it up and show it to everybody, the Jew. He's like, thank you very much, put it in his bag, went straight home. He goes straight home, he's smiling, he is whistling, he is all happy, he like feels inside the bag, he feels some things in there. And his wife sees him of this. She's like, what are you doing back so early? He says, weren't you in the shop? Why don't you just make some money for the family? And he's like, listen, you don't know, you don't have to deal with it, don't worry about it. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he says, look at this beautiful piece of merchandise that I have just bought. She smells, she takes one whiff of the BO that comes out of that hat, and she's like, what is this? What are you bringing into my house over here? And he's like, listen. He starts unwinding the turban until he takes out a precious jewel. And he says to her, and he tells her the whole story. And he says, you want to know why I was able to find it? He says, because I came to work at 1 p.m. He says, if I would have came to work at 9 a.m. in the morning like you wanted me to, guess what? I wouldn't have known that he had a heart attack and he passed away and they were raffling off or auctioning off all this stuff. Only because I did what I did, that's why we got this and that's why God gave it to them. Since then, The wife was an edel and madel. She's like, listen, my dear husband, whatever you say, I believe you. Could I have the credit card, please? I just remembered something. This is what it is. V'tzadik be'emunato yichyeh. A righteous person lives with faith. Lives with faith, and when you live with faith, God takes care of you. God takes care of you when you live with faith.
You still have to be responsible.
Of course, you have to be responsible. Of course, you have to be responsible. Get to you know what? I'll tell you a story that I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it or not, but there was once a construction worker, and what he was doing, his job was he would basically dig pits. Before the days of tractors, and so he would go and he would shovel, he would dig pits. And one day when he was by his particular construction site, he saw a herd of sheep that was right there, and he was looking at the sheep, and as he was shoveling, and he noticed that one sheep went into the forest. There was a forest nearby, and it just by itself, strolled right into the forest, and he's waiting for the sheep to come out, and the sheep doesn't come out, and he's like, that's so odd. And he comes the next day to the same construction site. And he's looking at the sheep again. And as he's, staring at the sheep, he sees another time a sheep is walking right into the forest. He's like, that's 2 for 2. That's something's really going on over here. And he's looking, he's waiting. The whole day he's waiting for the sheep to come out. Sheep never comes out. And he's like, all right, now the next day he's coming to work. He's shoveling, but he's just staring at the sheep the entire time. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, one sheep starts walking into the forest. And he's like, that's it. He throws on the shovel. He says, I'm taking my break now. And he runs after the sheep. And he takes his distance and he's following the sheep. The sheep is walking as if it knows exactly where it's going into. He goes and walks and suddenly gets into this big cave and it walks into this cave. He takes a few steps, into this cave. He sees it's pitch black. He's like, probably not so smart to go into pitch black cave. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to wait outside for the sheep to come out. And he's waiting. An hour goes by. No sheep comes back. And he's like, what is going on over here? He's like, what are you supposed to do? He goes home. The next day, he comes back to work. Guess what? He is looking right at the sheep the entire time. And he's staring at the sheep. And lo and behold, one sheep comes in. He tells the guy, says, listen, I'm done for the day. I need to go, whatever. I'll be back tomorrow. The guy says, he's a good worker. He says, fine, do whatever you got to do. He thinks maybe he's going to the doctor, whatever it is. And he runs into the forest. He says, I am going to find out where all these sheep are going to. Who is the sheep whisperer over here? What's going on? Where's all these sheep disappearing by themselves? So he goes, and he came prepared. He brought a little candle with him. He's like, if they're going to the cave, he's like talking to himself, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go. I'm going to take to the bottom of this. He follows the sheep. The sheep goes right to the same place, and it goes into the cave. Takes a deep breath, follows the sheep, safe distance. And as he's going deeper and deeper into the cave, he sees the sheep, and suddenly in the distance, he sees this huge old bear. And that's when his heart stops. And he sees the bear over there, and he sees the sheep walking up over there, and the bear is just like watching the sheep. And the sheep gets close. The sheep gets close enough. It was like an old sickly bear. Suddenly the bear takes its big paw, scoops it up, and makes a bracha. No. He goes and he starts enjoying the meal. He rips the sheep into pieces. If it's children's tale, the sheep goes to sleep, and they make ala esh. They make grilled vegetables with kebab going on. And the bear has his dinner. The guy he sees this construction worker, tiptoes out, walks back to the construction site, tells the construction owner, he says, I quit, I'm done. He says, what's going on? And the guy says, if God could feed a bear in a cave, he could feed me in my house. I'm done. The guy says, you are crazy, I have no idea what you're talking about, but yes, please go home, see a doctor or something. He goes home. His wife says, what are you doing home so early? Same story, right? No, different wife. And he says, listen, he says, if God could feed the bear in a cave, by him just sitting there, then God could feed me. And she's like, you've gone bonkers? Yeah, the story happened in England, probably. He says, what's going on over here? He says, why'd you go? And he's like, listen, I'm going to the Bet Midrash. I'm going to pray. I'm going to learn. They argue with him. So he goes, he figures it's a little fluke. Tomorrow he's going to probably go back to work. He goes straight to the Bet Midrash and he starts learning. He comes home late at night, and she's, he's saying Tehillim. The next morning, he wakes up bright and early, but he's at home. He's saying Tehillim. His wife wakes up and says, what are you doing home? He repeats the same sentence. He says, God could feed the bear, God could feed me. And she calls up the rabbi, says, Rabbi, you got to go talk to my husband over here. I don't know what he's talking into. The rabbi comes in and says, why are you not at work? He tells him the same cryptic statement. The rabbi says, listen, I don't know what to tell you. I'm trying to, nothing's working. He's not budging. every day, day in and day out. This guy is sitting over there, and he's going and he's praying, and he's going and he's doing what what he thinks he needs to do. He's praying. He doesn't waste time. He's not sitting there watching the sports game. He's going and he's praying and he's learning Torah the entire day. He was a righteous Jew. Finally, there was no money. There was really no money coming in, so the wife had to pawn some of the stuff. She started selling some of the jewelry, started selling some of this. Finally, there was no food left, nothing to sell. They had one final item. They had their donkey. She says, "What am I supposed to do?" She sold the donkey. Sold the donkey to some Arab traveler, and with that they were living. Meanwhile, he's still doing the same thing. He's learning. He's saying Tehillim, and he's not budging. This this Arab, what his job was is he would sort of search for treasures. And, so they told him where to dig in a certain place. He found the, treasure map, I don't know, whatever, use your imagination. He went and he was digging in a certain place, and he was digging, and lo and behold, he's digging and clink, he hit something. He is thinking, he's praising Allah, everything is, ishtabach shemo. He opens it up, he finds a box, he opens it up full of gold coins. He is so happy, he starts loading the donkey. He loads the donkey, he's trying to make his way out. Suddenly, a tree, a branch falls down, hits him on his head, breaks his neck, and kills this Arab instantly. Now, the donkey is sitting over there, he's waiting for instructions what to do. He's not looking to be like, he's dead. He's a donkey. So he's going and he's like, the donkey's waiting. No one's telling him where to go. So he starts walking. Where does he walk? The only place he knows where to walk, which is back to the guy's house where the guy's in a digger. He walks in and the donkey just walks right back into the stable. The next morning, the wife, wakes up and she sees there's a donkey. Her donkey's right back in the, in the house. She goes and sees he has some stuff on him. She opens up the, what's going on with the donkey, and she sees it's full of gold coins. She starts screaming. She says, her husband calls over, and he says, you see? He says, just like the bear, got his sheep, God sent us the money. It was for him, this is obvious. This is what's going on over here. They obviously, like any good story, whatever. They waited, no one came, they kept the money. But what we see over here, tzaddik be'emunah, someone who has faith, you could, and this doesn't mean faith, I don't have to, play video games all day. I'm going to go shopping all day. God will worry about the credit card bill. This is obviously, you're talking about somebody who's doing the right thing with his time. Doing the right thing with his time. Tzaddik be'emunah, God takes care of it. This is the emunah that we need to all strive for, that we need to get to. Said in the it says like this. It says that every mitzvah that we do is not in memory of something. Like we're sitting in Sukkot, it's not memory. It actually has a power. Like for example, Pesach, the power is our freedom. Shavuot is the Torah. The power of Sukkot is the power of Emunah, the power of faith. Like we said in the beginning, it is the shade of faith. The Tzila Dimehmenusa, as the Zohar says, it's a shade of faith. Just like God protected us in the Bidbar, in the desert, with the clouds of glory, so too God will protect you, will take care of you and all your problems, even if it appears that He's not, even if it appears that He's hiding, He is there, He is watching, and He is taking care of you. This is what it says in Leviticus regarding the Sukkot, regarding the holiday of Sukkot. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 43. It says, "Leman yedu dorotechem," that you world nations, the generation leman yedu, they will know ki b'Sukkot hoshafti et bnei Israel, that I put the Jewish people in Sukkot. And now, the reason you have to understand, leman yedu is knowledge. Emunah comes with knowledge. You know that there is a God. You know that God's watching over you. Not blind faith. You know that there is a God that's watching over you. This is what it says in Hosea chapter 2, verse 22. It says, "Ve'astich li be'emunah," and I will betroth to you with faith, "V'yadata et Hashem," and you know God. You know God. There's a very, very interesting thing that says in the Piyutim, in the second day of Sukkot. If you want to look at it, it's by the chazzan's repetition, by the chazzarat hashatz. It goes and it says something like this. I want to read it for you in Hebrew and I'm going to translate it. It should not be the mitzvah of Sukkah, should not be light in your eyes. Listen to what it's saying over here, something you probably never heard of before. Ki kol mitzvot dat chukotיה שקולה. Because its laws are equal to all the mitzvot in the Torah. You keep the mitzvah of Sukkah, it's like you kept everything. That's the power of the Sukkah. Now the question is what? Like we hear of other things, but like the mitzvah of Sukkah is equal to everything else? Yes, because the power of Sukkah is Emunah. And Emunah is the foundation of every mitzvah. As we know in Tehillim, chapter 119, verse 86, it says, Kol mitzvotecha emunah. All your commandments are Emunah. The foundation of everything as a Jew is Emunah, is faith. Now we begin to understand the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, page 3, that says that when when Mashiach is going to come, all the non-Jews are going to be like, hey, God, you would have given us, the Torah, we also would have kept it. So God says, okay, I'll give you a mitzvah. Let's see what you're going to do with this mitzvah. And what does God give them? The mitzvah of Sukkah. The Gemara goes down over there that the God is going to give them the mitzvah sukkah. God is going to make it very hot. They're going to go, this mitzvah sukkah, they're going to kick the sukkah, and they're going to go out. But the question is, why out of all the mitzvot that God made them do is going to choose the sukkah? Pick something that, represents the whole mitzvah, all the mitzvot, give them all the mitzvot. The answer is, that's why God picked the mitzvah of sukkah. Because the mitzvah of sukkah represents everything, because the foundation is emunah. That's what Sukkot is. It's the foundation of emunah. And we know the foundation of every mitzvah, kol mitzvotecha emunah. All the power of all the mitzvot, everything, the foundation is emunah. So when God tests the non-Jews, He is testing them with all the mitzvot. Because all the mitzvot is based off emunah, and that's what sukkah represents. When a person goes into sukkah, you realize all the mitzvot we do with part of our body. You do it outside your body, part of your body. Sukkah, you go into you're literally inside the mitzvah. You're enveloped in the mitzvah. You're completely surrounded. You're like, this is God's hug. This is literally God's hug. You're in God's power. Everything, nothing matters. The Shvilach Pinchas goes in and brings down. I hope you guys are with me. It's so beautiful. Oh, it's a shame if you guys are not with me. A shame for me and a shame for you. And for your children, because it's going to change your life. Listen to this. We're going to go. Follow me. Follow with me. The Shvilach Pinchas goes and brings down. It says when Adam Rishon, before this, when God was going to create Adam Rishon, He went and He asked the angels representing certain character traits, and He goes and He went and He asked Chesed, and He asked him, should we create Adam? And Chesed said, yeah, he should be created. Why? Because he'll do a lot of kindness. He'll do a lot of Chesed. So I said, fine. God goes to Emet, truth. He says, should I create Adam? And Emet says, no. Man is not so truthful. Realize he said man is not. I don't know. He said man is not. I don't know. He said humans are not going to be so truthful. They should not be created. He's full of lies. God goes to tzedek, righteousness, and says, should I be created? He says, yeah. Man is very charitable. Man is very charitable and righteous. You should create it. And then he goes to shalom, peace. And peace said, no. You should not be created because there's a lot of quarrelsome. There's a lot of arguments, a lot of fights. You should not be created. So we see over here. 2 were 50-50, right? 2 are pro, 2 are against. Emet and Shalom were against God creating man, and Tzedek and Chesed said that he should be created. Now what God did in this pasuk in Daniel, chapter 8, verse 12, it says, Vatishlach emes arza, and God threw emes to the earth. So that's what God, so Emet and Shalom, which means it's truth and peace. Both said no, but God took Emet and says, I'm going to throw you down into earth. The question is, why didn't He throw down also Shalom? Why didn't He also throw down peace? Peace should also, they both said no, let them both go down. Why did God only, and what does it mean He threw him down also? Well, we'll try to understand this. God took Emes and He cast him down into the world. This is a midrash. So we know that the Torah is known as Emet. It says, we know when we go up to the Torah, it says, Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet. God gave us the Torah Emet. It's the truth. It's the truth of the Torah. Now, Emet, when it represents the Torah. Shalom, what is Shalom? What was peace saying that no, you should not create man? Why did peace say don't create man? Because for peace, God, the peace was saying that man has an evil inclination and a good inclination. But inside it's always struggling. They'll never have peace. If you're going to create man, he's always going to be struggling with his evil inclination. Don't create him. He's going to go and he's going to fall. The peace over there is going to fall. So God says, okay, that's why you're worried about it? No problem. There's a Gemara in Kedushin, which if you haven't followed through the ways that we'll be going for the past few classes, I've mentioned it almost every single class in the past few times, and there's a reason for it. The Gemara in Kedushin says, Barati Yetzara, Barati Torah Tavlin. I have created the evil inclination, I have created the antidote. The antidote is the Torah. He says, if you want to go and you want to get out of the evil inclination, that's what you're going to have the Torah. So what was the Shalom's problem? Shalom's problem is that there's going to be an evil inclination and they're going to be at odds with the good inclination. There's not going to be peace inside with the two inclinations. God says, Vatishlach emes arza. I'm going to throw emes onto the ground. Why? Because I'm going to put emes, I'm going to put the Torah into the world. Now that you have the Torah, now that you have the power to get the antidote against the evil inclination, now that you have the power to get the evil inclination, now Shalom has nothing to say. And it would answer all the questions. So now, when we're going to go a little bit more, and then we're going to wrap everything up very beautifully. At least we'll try. Let me bring you another midrash. I didn't realize how deep this class was until now. I'm sorry. I should have gave you a warning that you have to concentrate. Oh well. Midrash and Chumah goes and says like this. It says that when God created the world, God wanted to put His dwelling place amongst the world. And that's what it was, until Adam HaRishon sinned. When Adam ate from the Etz Hadas, not an apple, right? He ate from the Etz Hadas. When he ate from the Etz Hadas, God had to withdraw Himself from the world, and it became a virtual spiritual wasteland. Now, the world was dark, says the Midrash, until after Yetziat Mitzrayim. It was void, it was dark, it was empty until after Exodus. The Zohar says something that there are three things that are interrelated. The Torah, God, and the Jewish people. All those three things are interrelated. As the Pasuk says in Kohelet, V'achut ha'meshulash lo b'mehera yanatek. A 3-ply cord is very difficult to rip. If it's three, it's more stronger. So now, we have to understand what it is. That everything that happened with God, the way that it happened with God, the way that it happened with the Jews, the way that it happened with Torah, because they're connected, there was a pattern that's going on over here. Now, stick with me and listen to this beautiful idea that Shvili Pinchas brings down. It says like this. It says that God went and he told the angels, remember we said in the beginning that God put the angels to Avraham Avinu? He made them go specifically when Avraham Avinu was doing the mitzvah of Sukkah. And he put them specifically in the mitzvah of Sukkah to symbolize, what was the mitzvah of Sukkah? Because the mitzvah of Sukkah symbolized the fact that the Jewish people had blind faith in God.
Didn't
Okay.
they come by Pesach?
Huh?
Didn't the malachim come by Pesach time?
So first of all, it says that there was Matzot also. Different topic in its entirety. How do you split those two things? Way long. Maybe we'll speak about that in Pesach, how we understand it, which is true because it says also regarding the matzot. But let's put that on the back burner for now. It was a sukkah. The Midrash makes down that it was under the sukkah, and that was the shade. So God made it specifically under the mitzvah of Sukkot that He went down over there as a symbolic gesture that just like Avraham Avinu was doing what he's doing right now, so too in the future the Jewish people will sit in a sukkah representing the Emunah. Now, why is this so important at this point in time? Because this shows that the foundation we said of everything, of all the mitzvot, is Emunah. So what God is telling the angels, and he says, why are you giving, the Jewish people, why are you giving them the Torah? He says, how do they deserve it? And the answer is, don't you remember that you went and you sat in the sukkah, you sat in the shade of Avraham Avinu? That didn't answer them like, we got shade and that's why they get it. But rather that symbolizes what the Jewish people represent. The Jewish people represent, what is the sukkah? The sukkah is emunah. The angels, God says, you have emunah. There's no faith in you. You have no free will. There's no way that you could have faith. The Jewish people had the faith. They went and through it. That's how they got out of the Exodus. That's how they crossed the sea. That's how they got everything, because everything is the foundation of faith. With the power of faith, they're getting everything. That's how they get the power of the Torah. The power of the Torah comes with the faith. And it says the angel says, you don't have this. It says that's why the angels were silenced from it. Because now there was a reason for it, and it had to be specifically for Avraham Avinu. Because Avraham Avinu got tested in his faith, got tested 10 times. God tells him, Lech lecha me'artzecha, go leave from your land. God doesn't tell him where you go to. He had blind faith. Avraham Avinu was he was the first one. He was the one that changed. He just went. Whatever God says, pick up and go, I'll pick up and go. You realize his test was test of faith. Go and slaughter your son. Not everything that he represented, he just had to do it. He represented emunah, he represented faith. God said the mitzvah of the sukkah is going to come by you. And that's why the angels came specifically by Avraham, specifically why it's going to mitzvah, because that's representing emunah. Emunah is the foundation of everything, and that is why it was able to silence the angels during that time. Let's try to put this all in together and try to close it off. We started off with many questions over here. Give me a second, then I'll open up for questions. We started with many questions. Number one, the sukkah is the Zohar says it's a shade of faith. Then we said the sukkah has a connection between the Torah. We get the merit of the sukkah. We get the Torah. Then we also asked that the sukkah is equal to all the other mitzvot in the Torah. And then we also said that because of the merit of the sukkah, because of that, he was able to silence the angels. So now we put this all into perspective. It makes a lot of sense what's going on over here. You realize the power that you have in the sukkah. When you're going in the sukkah, first of all, you have to understand that it represents emunah. It's a foundation of emunah because it's the clouds of glory. Clouds of glory. You know what it meant, the clouds of glory? Nothing mattered for the Jewish people. If people shot arrows at them, it just deflected right back at them. It was calm. It was dry cleaning for their clothing. They didn't have any scorpions. God took care of everything. It was pure, simple, unadulterated faith. No one can touch the Jews. That's what the sukkah is represented. It's represented the cloud of glory, which is the emunah. Now that we have the emunah, we said that all the foundation of everything, we said that Havkuk went and brought down everything. V'tzadik be'emunataho yichya. He brought it down to one mitzvah. The question that we ask is, why only one mitzvah did he bring it down to out of all the mitzvot? That's what he picked, and he picked specifically that because that's included in everything. Kol mitzvotecha emunatecha. All the mitzvot are all emunah. All the foundation is all based on emunah. So when Chavkuk brought it down, it's brought it down to the foundation of everything. So now we see over here that the Jewish people, the merit that they had it is the Sukkah, they got the Torah. Because the merit of the Sukkah of Avraham Avinu, God was able to deflect the claim of the angels. Because the angels said, they don't deserve it. It says, of course they deserve it. They have Emunah. Emunah represents everything. Emunah represents the ability to go and get rid of the Satan. Why did we said the same idea? That God put that Torah. Everything works hand in hand. It's like a beautiful puzzle that all plugs in together. And you see it's like a beautiful circle. That Emet is the Torah. And God sent down Emet, God sent down the Torah. And that's why God, we said there's a 3-ply cord. It's not easily separated. The God, the Jewish people, and the Torah. God came down, and then the world was desolate. That he came down and first was desolate, the world was desolate. The Torah came down also, the world was desolate. It was void of the Torah. The Jewish people also had to go into some sort of desolate. That's why they went to the Midbar. They went into the desert. Just like the Torah, just like God, just like everything. They all followed the same path. They went into the desolate. Because they went into that, they had the power, they had the ability to go and get the Emunah. They had the power, the ability to go and get the Torah for for themselves. This is how everything plugs in so beautifully. So you're going into the Sukkah. The Sukkah really is the shade of faith. You realize every single second that you're in the Sukkah, you're getting a mitzvah. That is something so unbelievable that you have. The power that you have is so unbelievable. Do not waste it. Spend every free minute that you have in the Sukkah. Any questions? Before we ask any questions, is it clear?
Yes.
For some people. For other people, not clear. For other people, takes time for digest. For other people, they're not in the room anymore. Okay. In the Never Land. Okay. Questions. But I'm sorry, we're gonna have to. I have like 2 minutes of questions, and I gotta run. So let's do it. Questions. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. I guess. Okay, I'll ask.
Yeah.
It's not a mitzvah for women to be on a sukkah?
You're right. So it's a positive. It's a positive bound mitzvah. It's a positive time bound mitzvah, which women do not have the obligation to sit in the sukkah. But if you sit in the sukkah, you get a mitzvah. You don't have the obligation. Your question, if it's a follow-up as to why in that perspective, we don't have the time to get into that now. Excellent question, though.
Okay. I want to ask a second one, so I'll ask you later.
Okay. Any other questions? We got like 1.5 minutes. I'm sorry. Anybody else?
Is my question answerable?
Oh, what was your question again? Oh, how far do you have to go? Excellent question.
Give a class on Shabbos, like how much?
I wanted to give a series on Emunah. B'ezrat Hashem, I'm working on it. This is something that will happen sometime, hopefully, B'ezrat Hashem, down in the near future. So the question is, how far do you have to go? It really depends on your level of Emunah. But true, deep inside, how much your level of Emunah. There are people that I know personally, that they live in Israel, that they don't have enough, their income is short a few $100s every single month. Because they're learning, they're doing that, and they're living, and every single month they live. There's some people that are able to do that, some people are not. It depends on your level of Emunah. For the majority of us, still work, still date. Don't expect your husband to come in over there with a bouquet of flowers and be like, I'm Prince Charming, in a white horse with the, shining armor. Well, if he does come in, that probably run away, because that's something, yeah. But I'm saying you have to do yer shtadlut. You have to do yer shtadlut to the fact. But the more emunah that you have, the less shtadlut you have to do. But I have to be very careful with that. We have to give a whole class on emunah to try to go and delve into that, into the depths of that. Any other questions? What was your question, the long one, really quickly? No long question. Okay, chazak bo.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.